Hey girl.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Hanging in there.
Um,
Yeah.
I made myself a big old mimosa for our chat.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I like the glass you chose.
The champagne glass just wasn't going to cut it for today.
You know
Um,
what? I totally get that.
Sean just grabbed a mimosa and a seltzer. So that's the type of Sunday we're going to have today.
Well, you don't want to have to
Um,
get up too much. I mean, you really want to you want to like
well,
you guys should have like a
right.
cooler next to the couch.
Right. I mean, moving from the kitchen to the living room is a lot of work these days, okay?
Yeah. That's our commute.
Right, right. Uh, so how are you faring?
I'm okay. I feel like this past week was like harder than the one before.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know if it was like that for a lot of people, but I feel like it might have been.
yeah,
I feel
I
like we're
agree.
all kind of wondering how long we're gonna live like this. So,
Right.
it's like that weird balance of knowing we're all like lucky to be, have homes and be comfortable and have what we need,
Yeah,
but also being like this is still hard. like,
yeah,
you know.
it is.
So, yeah.
It's like this idea of, I mean, we even like walked over to Sean's parents' house and we've been doing like a loop with the dogs. And it's like we have to stand at a distance, and his mom was like, I want to give you all a hug. And she's like, and I can't. And we're like, air hugs. And it's like everyone understands the distance, but it's like, it's still hard. It's like you want to go and do things, and we're like we played like Connect Four, and we're like there's only so many times I can beat Sean in Connect Four, okay? So he's yelling in the other room. I asked him if he wanted to come say hello. He's like, no, not if it's live. I'm like, someday. um but yeah, it's hard, and like especially like I feel like as living by yourself too, like it's even harder. Like we have each other, but even now it's like, what are we going to do? Like, do you want to plan dinner like 6, 7 hours before we have to eat dinner? Like, that's about it.
Yep.
What do you want to watch? Like, should we take a nap? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's
It's
it? Like,
yeah.
how are you feeling with like everything going on with like the hospitals? I can't remember if we talked about like the national like guard coming in or not last Sunday, because I don't know if we had hit that yet, that they were coming
No,
in to set up.
yeah, I don't think we hit that. Honestly, like for me, I feel like the National Guard's just up there with like first responders,
Right.
police, healthcare providers. Like they're all like so brave and I'm just grateful that like they're helping. Whatever. I don't, I think they're like usually transporting like medical supplies and
Yeah.
like doing stuff like that. So, um I'm just grateful, I guess, but I think mobilizing the National Guard, like that phrase is so
Yeah.
alarming to some people, and I think it like because there's like a military association, it
You
feels
go.
like
Your brain
more
goes there.
dire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Your
um,
your brain goes there. And I don't think that they're and I think that's something that people like. I know we talked about this last time, but like people keep going back to this idea of like what's on the news is the truth. It's only part of the truth. And I think we need to
right,
remember that there's like the media is the media, and they're giving you some of the facts, but they're not giving you all of it. There
right,
is some sensationalizing of the news that gets people to watch it. And so it's like you've got to kind of take it. We were listening to Governor Cuomo yesterday, and he's like, you've got to take everything with a grain of salt, sometimes 2 grains of salt. And it's so
yep,
true. It's like we're still learning and evolving. So don't think it's the end. Don't think because the National Guard is coming in, because, the Navy's helping out. Like, this is just ways to help separate, what's going on and make sure that we don't continue the spread in the hospitals. And so I
right,
think that if you keep it in that mind, they're just trying to make effective ways to separate those that, are coming up with potential COVID-19, and how to separate them and keep everyone else safe, including the healthcare workers, because if
right.
they start to get sick, there's only so many of them, and I think it's great that Boston is graduated the medical students early. But even then, you still have the issue of getting them trained on systems within hospitals and all of that. So I think it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's it's interesting times, but they're doing the best they can. And you know, what do you think about, so in New York, they're like fining people if they're out in like groups, like in parks. And Chicago, I know my sister said they shut down Lakeshore Drive, which was like a big strip where people would go out and congregate and play games and everything. And it's like you can't even walk your dog there now because of that. What are your feelings on that? Because I know I have my own opinions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a complicated issue because we're so used to like having so much freedom in this country, and I think that um, it's funny. I was reading a post and it said something about if like government officials would use different like phrasing,
Yeah.
people would react differently because we're so used to having our freedom and having any part of our freedom revoked, even for like a brief amount of time, is something that a lot of people push back on.
Right.
For me, I have, I don't have a problem with authority figures. And so when they tell me like, here's what we should be doing, I'm like, okay. And then I'm scared not to do it.
Right.
And I know a lot of people don't feel that way. So I
Yeah.
guess to me, if like there's a huge, like say there's a huge group of folks and they're like having a barbecue and it's clear they're all together, yeah, they can be fined.
Yeah.
Because I think that's bull. And I think that's, irresponsible and selfish.
Right.
And, I mean, if people are just happen to be walking past each other and there's like more than, a couple people in the vicinity, no.
Yeah.
Right. To me, I guess that's my thought.
Right.
But I mean, I think, they still have like people playing, like I saw pictures of people playing volleyball. And I'm like, oh, you guys are all touching the ball. Like this is just a whole,
Right. And it doesn't matter if you're young or not. Like this is the problem. People don't understand it.
No.
This is a disease. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't hit one versus the other. And so like this idea of, okay, we're keeping a distance and we're washing our hands after, it's like, can you just like not for a few weeks, like just a couple of weeks, and then you can go back and play. And it's like, and I agree with you. I think that they should be, I don't have an issue with what's going on with the way the government is trying to enforce and provide some of these guidances. I think that a lot of people that do, it's like, is this really the conversation that we need to have right now? Like, I get it, but you've seen what happens in places like Italy. So are we really questioning, like, you can question the government all you want after this is done. We can talk politics after this is done. I'm happy to have those conversations. I think we all have our opinions, but right now we're doing the best we can do. And if you have a better solution, I'm fine with that. What bothers me is seeing people going, I'm so upset with this. Why are they doing this? It's like, what do you want them to do? Like, do you have a better solution? Should we all just go out and get each other sick? Because you're upset that people are dying, but yet you don't want people to stay home, and you find that like an infringement of your rights. You can't have both sides. So
right. Well, and I think too, like, the reason that we have governments in place is to create structure and to protect us from each other and ourselves. I mean, honestly. And so
true.
So it's, I mean, I think that it is their job to tell us, here's what we need to do. We've consulted with the experts.
Right.
Essentially, hopefully they know more than we do, which I'm sure they do. And so they're saying, this is what's needed. And so, and to me, it's like, I just want everybody to listen, because the quicker everybody listens, the quicker this is done. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think, I think that's it's a tough thing. And I think too, a lot of people are now like dealing with like mental health issues with like being isolated. And so like the longer that goes on, the harder it's going to be for a lot of folks. So, I mean,
well, and I think that sometimes we forget too, it's like we're upset, but to your point, it's like you're upset because you're inside, but there's quite a few of us that's still have a job and a paycheck coming in, that are still being able to work, that are still have access to internet and paying our bills and everything. what frustrates me is that some of these people who are arguing and upset about this, it's like, I saw a friend post the other day. She's like, what about victims of domestic violence who are now quarantined with their abusers, and
Right.
children who are quarantined with their abusers, people who are out on the front lines, people who are now laid off and wondering, how am I going to pay rent next month and everything? It's like, for me personally, if my job is to stay inside and I get to keep my job and I get to do, and the lights are on and running and I'm with somebody I love, I have family around me that I can talk to on Zoom. It's like, am I can still go outside and walk the dog, take walks on my own, work out, I'm healthy. Like, is this really the worst thing that could happen to me? Like, there's so many other people out there that, and that's where, for me and like my mental state, I know sometimes I have to kind of check myself and go, okay, I get it. You're frustrated. You're anxious. There's things, but remember that there's all these other people that are dealing with that and then some. And so it's not
Right.
invalidating my feelings, but it's just saying, it's kind of putting it into perspective. For me, that helps. And I'm like, okay, I need to just take a few breaths. But
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a balance too between like having those realizations, but also like realizing that everything's relative. So like it's
right.
okay to say, yes, I'm comfortable and I have a job and all that stuff, but this
Yeah.
is still hard. So like I think, yeah, I mean I think it's it's a balance. It's a balancing act, right? I mean, it's I feel like even when there isn't a pandemic, it's always hard when it's overwhelming to think of all the people that need help.
Right.
And
Right.
so, I mean, I think this is just it in a more extreme place. Like,
Yeah.
we're just, just everything's more extreme. Everything's heightened, that kind of thing. So
Right.
I
Well,
will
I
say
think, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, I saw something good today. I saw that Germany is not being hit as hard as Italy, and I saw that Germany is welcoming some of the patients from Italy into their hospitals to treat them, and I thought that was like pretty epic because I feel like it's so easy to want to close your borders to
Yeah.
people and be like, we're just going to handle our stuff, you handle your stuff. Like, it's fear makes you want to, like,
Right.
close yourself off from the unknown, and I feel like that's so incredibly generous. I mean, given that essentially you're bringing a highly contagious, like, carriers into your communities.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're taking every precaution, but I just think that's the generosity of spirit that is incredibly impressive during all of this.
Well, and I think that's what you see in like New York. Like, again, when Cuomo, obviously, since I'm now here quarantined in New York, it's listening to him talk about it. Like in New York City, which is one of the hot spots, they've got a lot of positive patients. But he said, he's like, we've got to get the hospitals, working together. The healthcare practitioners and professionals working together. So you may have to go to this hospital and that. And I get that there's probably some challenges in doing that, but it's really, we're all in this together. This is one
Right.
issue that we're all going to have to deal with. So it's not you guys versus us. This is, everyone's in this. And so to your point, when you look at that and people going, okay, I've got to help, I've got to figure out, and that goes back to, like, I think last week when we were talking about, like, going and getting groceries. If there's something that you can do for somebody while they're, out on the front lines, or if, they're more susceptible or at risk, what can you do to kind of bring joy to somebody else? And then I think that ripple effect, not only do they pass that on, but I think it also helps you. I know it helps me when I feel like I'm doing something that I'm helping somebody. It alleviates some of that stress and anxiety. I feel like I'm at least doing something. Like I emailed my the president of my company yesterday, and I was like, hey, I know this is so random, but I go, I've recorded all these yoga videos and we've got all these people. We're still working because we still have clinical studies going on. I'm like, is there a place that you want me to post them? I'm happy to re-record them whatever you need. But I go, at least I can do something to help people who are stuck indoors, like maybe with their kids that are looking for something.
Right.
And he's like, great idea, you know, but here I am. I'm like, I know it's super random. It doesn't like solve the issue, but at least it's some, I go, I want to help in some way. So it's figuring
Right.
out how to do that. And I think one thing that I wanted to touch on that you and I were talking about like last night via text message is this idea of like understanding your boundaries during this time. I think it's really I, I think it's really helping us explore that sense of setting those limits. You know, how much
Right.
information can you take in? When do you need to excuse yourself? And like, not to put you on the spot, but one thing that I thought was really um, powerful was the idea that you last night were like, listen, I got into this group chat. We were talking COVID. I didn't want to hear it, so I left. And I think that that's so um, self-reflective and like I don't know, how do you feel about this idea that you could step away from the conversation and like setting those boundaries, like, and maybe it's something you're trying to do more of, but I really think it, to me, I was so impressed by that you were like, yeah, no, I'm out, I don't need to tell you anything, I'm just leaving. So
Yesterday I had a weird hard day. So I think it was yeah, I mean, I think that I'm trying to work on boundaries. I feel like that's something that we all work on for like
yeah,
ever, right? I mean, it's
absolutely,
like an evolution. But I was having one of those days where I had to realize I really don't have anything to give anybody else because I'm like, having, I was having, significant periods of panic, both irrational and rational. And it was, I was just sort of trying to talk myself out of like losing it. So,
yeah,
so I think I actually dropped off two different conversations without saying anything. And it, and I had, of course, like the guilt and the I hope don't nobody thinks I'm rude or da da da
right,
da. But then I had just like this feeling of like calm and like peace, right? Like I just
yeah,
need to like step away and yeah. So I think being self aware during all of this is important because if you look at any sort of mental health resources, especially for COVID,
yeah,
they'll say, limit your exposure to everything, social media, news, everything, because,
yeah,
you just have to, it's too much. Frankly, this is such a weird's not the right word. It's surreal. Like, this is such a
mm-hmm.
surreal situation that I would never have imagined. And I'm sure like some scientists who are way smarter than me saw this coming or knew it was possible. I
Right,
didn't even think about it.
right,
So, which I feel blessed that I wasn't scared about this happening.
yeah,
I'm glad that it just sort of like came upon us because if I'd feared it, it would have been worse.
yeah,
But this is just it's just so unreal. And I feel like you and I've talked about it. I mean, it's like that stupid movie. It's not really a stupid movie, but now it feels stupid because I'm angry at it. Outbreak, but without the
yeah,
monkeys.
yeah,
And it just doesn't feel real. And so I feel like, it's overwhelming just to even think about it, let alone like be inundated with like the ticker tape at the bottom of the thing and like, numbers, just
right.
graphs, like, oh my God. And like just everything just so, limiting the exposure to that and sort of pretending it's not happening while obeying all of the stay at home
Right.
rules can be healthy
Yeah.
a little from time to time, I think. So,
Well, and I think it's this idea that it's not like pretend, it's out there, it's happening, but like if you think about it constantly and you can't do anything, I think that this idea of feeling like helpless just drives people nutty, like you said. And it's like, um, you know, by doing nothing, you actually are helping. And so it's wrapping your head around that, even though you do feel like like you said, I have nothing to offer. It's like, but you do. You're sitting here, you're continuing to do what you're being asked, and that's doing something. That's helping because
right,
you are one less person that somebody else has to treat, worry about, think, because you're doing what's asked of you by, and it's kind of like, this sounds um I don't know how this, but you're doing what you can for your country. Like,
Yeah.
and I know that sounds crazy, but it's like, this is doing nothing is doing something. So,
Yeah.
and I know that's usually the opposite of what a lot of, movements and everything say, but it's like, this is the reverse of that this time. So what are you, I mean, how are you kind of keeping your mental health, and emotional health in check? Have you shifted and been doing some things differently? Have you been reading more? Like, what is it that you've been doing to kind of keep you, now that we're going in, we've been in this, I think we're on day 14 from a Massachusetts perspective. Um, what has your routine or how you're taking care of yourself shifted while you're in quarantine or self-isolation or social distancing, whatever term you're using?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm using a lot of my standard coping techniques, comforting shows on Netflix that I've seen 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Um, you know, lots of pictures of other people's dogs, like, frankly, it's the highlight of the day.
Yeah.
Seeing your dogs in the yoga is a
Yeah.
highlight for me. Honestly, a lot of yoga is helping me. I think that I'm doing yoga more than I would, without a pandemic going on, and I feel like it helps because it's sort of it helps your body, but it also, whether or not this sounds cheesy, it helps like my soul. Like it makes me
Yeah.
feel sort of like at peace. So I'm doing a lot of that. I'm trying to maintain contact with people using, House Party and FaceTime and things like that. Um, I think it's become the longer we're in it, the more I miss like hugs and like
Yeah.
I was reading a post about like human touch, and it's there's people are struggling with that, right? Because
Yeah.
we are social creatures, and we aren't really meant to be isolated and alone.
Yeah.
So it's something that we all are trying to handle the best that we can. But overall, just work is actually helping me.
Yeah.
I find the weekends to be a bit of a challenge at this time because they're just not what I need them to be. Um, and so, I think work is a distraction and takes up time. And frankly, that's all I need things to do at this point is take up time.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. What about, like, are you getting outside? Because I find, like, one thing that I've been doing, I totally hear you on the yoga. And as you know, I mean, I preach it. It's been something that has really become like a therapy for me. And so
right.
I always say, even a little movement, there's something about the way your body flows in that somehow just makes sense to me and helps me kind of ground and get centered. I mean, it's even doing it. I'll tell you, I had the dogs barking. I had Chauncey was trying to get a bone that was by the tripod this morning. And I was like, you're going to knock the tripod over. So I'm trying to teach a class. And it was like, but there was this sense of calmness that I was like, this is it. This is life. It's crazy. It's messy. And it kept me like kind of grounded. And I was just like, I need this for me, even if nobody else joined. Um, but I'll tell you, getting outside and taking a walk and breathing that fresh air is super helpful for me, and it's something that I need to do on a regular basis. Granted, if it rains or something, that obviously puts a kibosh on it. But I think, and it's even, I see people out walking, and even though you can't touch or see anybody, you can still wave. And I find people like that smile and that wave or something is helping me with that kind of social interaction that I'd normally get if you and I were out taking, a yoga class together or hanging out on the weekends. Have you been
Right.
able to get out, or what are your thoughts? Has that helped you?
So honestly, I haven't been going out very much. I went out Thursday for a walk along the Charles, and it definitely helped to get out.
Yeah.
It's funny because I feel like I was inside my building for so long that, I mean, it was like 14 days, I think,
Yeah.
without leaving the building, which is a long time. Um, that I was more fearful than I normally would be if I had just been continuously going outside.
Right.
So I think it was healthy to get out there. Honestly, I'm thinking about starting to like take my car outside, like, to places outside the city,
Drive.
um,
Yeah.
drive and do like parks and stuff like that aren't like, because the Charles gets, especially if it's nice,
Busy.
it gets
Yeah.
crazy busy, and
Yeah.
it's basically an entire city worth of people trying to like see the water and go for
Right.
a walk. So um, there are lots of parks, like especially near my home, like in my hometown, and
Yeah.
so I've been thinking about going down there and getting a walk in, because I feel like
Yeah.
that would be great, and I also really really need to see the ocean right now. So that's one of the things that I think is on the docket for this week for sure.
I would
Um,
say, have you ever gone up on the North Shore? What is it, Nahant? There's like a dog beach up there. So even just going and like parking your car and like, just standing there. I don't know how many people are out or if it's open right now, but that um really beautiful and calming. I agree with you.
yeah,
I'm the water, like I love the ocean, I love the water, anything like that. There's something about that, the flow. It's like the breathing exercises, the waves
yep,
coming in and out. um Sean actually turned on, like, I think it was, I don't know if it was BBC or Animal Planet or something, and they were talking about like sea turtles mating and everything. I was like, we need to watch more of this. Like, I get just, and it was just happy, like it was
yep,
watching them and learning about, and I was like, why don't we watch more of this? And I thought about that this morning. So I think for me, the outdoors has been, critical, and the yoga, you know, um, and then just trying to, I keep saying, I go, we're 14 days into this, and I go, I said I was going to read all these books, and I signed up for Rosetta Stone, and I'm like, I still haven't opened Rosetta Stone yet. So I'm like, I gotta do that, like, gotta check some
yeah,
things. I know my dad's like working on the basement. I wish at this point I had like a house or something that I had some little like pet projects to do that,
yeah, yeah.
but
Well, and I think again, I mean, I'm like a broken record, but I think it's all a balancing act too, because I think that part of us has to realize that it it is work for our brains to like to live in a time of this much like
right,
fear and uncertainty.
right.
And so honestly, we don't have the brain capacity to do some of these like, projects and stuff like that, because we're we're just coping, right? So
Yeah,
it's like sometimes I find, I'll do, maybe I'll do a yoga workout, maybe I'll do, clean my house or something like that, and I'm freaking exhausted. And it's like, we don't realize how much energy it takes
yeah.
to be okay right now, and try to maintain our sanity. So, um,
I think
I
that's a
think,
I think that's a great point. I think like sometimes we're like, okay, there's this idea of keeping a schedule and keeping yourself busy, but it's okay to just chill too.
that's it.
Like if that's
Yep.
what you need. And I think we talked last week about being active and doing things, but it's okay to just want to relax and just kind of process some of the emotions, and we forget that it's not about hiding those. These are real emotions that we're feeling. You're allowed to feel them. They are not um they're they're real, they're raw. So however you need to process them, and that may be just sitting and relaxing for a day, and letting those emotions come in and then go out, and
Right.
just knowing that you don't need to stay in them, I think, is the biggest thing, and not to let
Yeah.
them consume you.
Yeah. I think too, there's a lot of fear around, eating too much or gaining weight during all this and all that. And I think that to me is like, just seems kind of like, I'm not trying to downplay anyone's
Yeah,
feelings or how they feel, but to me it seems kind of like a waste of time, because
yeah,
this is like a life or death situation, pandemic that we're in right
right,
now. I feel like you should move in ways that feel good to your body, eat things that make your body feel good. If you need a bag of chips, then you need a bag of chips. If you
right.
go a day without working out, then that's okay.
Yeah,
I feel like adding more fear of like something around your physical appearance when we're going through a pandemic is just adding sort of like, salt to the wound, right? You just want
yeah,
to, you want to just sort of, um, really practice the ultimate in self-care, right? What do you need to feel good? And, I would say some days, like, I don't want to do yoga. It just seems like a lot just to like
Yeah.
move, to get up.
Yeah.
But I feel so much better when I do. So it's like that is really for my body more than anything else, right? And for my mind, for that matter. But I think I don't know. I think it's important to just listen to yourself and what you need, and do the best you can, and realize
Yeah.
that's okay. That the best you can do is okay. Like,
Right.
so.
I
Yeah.
think it's so interesting that you say that, because I was thinking about it this morning, and it's like you're reading my mind. It's like I was talking to my family about this, and I go, Sean's been great about like cooking these amazing dinners, and he's made like omelets in the morning and everything. And I go, my sister made a joke like, did you go up there and like relocate your isolation up there so you could eat that, so you had somebody to cook for you? And I was like, I didn't, but, and I go, I'll tell you this much. I go, I'm probably going to gain a few pounds while I'm up here. And it's like
Yeah.
that, there's part of that does scare me, because I'm so used to this routine and trying to stay healthy for me, for what I feel. But it's like the opposite of just letting that go and knowing like that's okay. Like it's
Yeah.
all temporary, everything's, and just being okay with that, for me, that actually creates a little bit more anxiety of the fact that I'm not doing what I would I'm not going to the gym like I normally would. I'm not in control of I'm eating what we have, because I don't want to go to the grocery store just because I want to get that salad, or that lean
Yeah.
protein or whatever. And it's like I've become more okay with that. So for me, that's really been like a learning and like kind of self reflection of being, like you said, like it's okay. Like eat the Reese's Pieces, eat the Skittles, like take care of yourself, get your sleep. Yes, you should try and stay healthy because it boosts your immunity, but that doesn't mean driving yourself crazy to try and figure out during, however long we're in this phase of eating your veggies and eating low carbs, or eating keto or whatever. It's like that's just, this is life. So,
Yeah.
and that idea of getting over it and just being okay with it is scary at first, but then somewhat empowering to know like I'm in control of this. I'm making this decision because I need to, for my emotional and mental health. So I think that's really an interesting statement, because I know it's something I've been like kind of grappling with myself. Is I'm so used to being busy and being active and eating healthy that I don't have that much control over it. And so I'm like,
Yep.
now what? How do I do this without losing my mind? But letting go of that idea is somewhat freeing and validating. So,
Yeah, and I think too, like, I guess, like, I thought of two things while you were just chatting. I thought about one, people with disordered eating habits, or a disordered relationship with food. I feel like it's important for people to remember that you don't have to work out in order to have permission to eat. Like, I
yeah,
feel like that's really important, because that should be all the time. But I feel like we're in such a weird situation that I think it's just important to like remind people of that, and also what it reminded me of is that you have so much more energy than I have, and I envy that in you typically. And right now, I want to like send you a virtual hug, because I can't imagine how hard this is for you. Because I will say, I mean, I typically, I of course am more active than I am during quarantine, but
right.
but hanging out and reading a book for hours, pretty comfortable for me. That's like a pretty comfortable space. And I
Yeah,
know that for you, it's like you're like my dad, in that you want to be moving, you want to be like, your body's like, okay, let's do something
yeah,
immediately, like, so just sending you virtual hugs, because I can't imagine how
yeah,
hard that
gotcha.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah. I mean, last week I was going out on the front porch and doing like jump ropes for 2 minutes, just because I was like, I gotta do something. And it's like, I'll read, but like you can sit, and that's something that I envy, is like you can sit with a book, and I'm like, I have all these books I want to read, but I can literally read them for like I can get through like a chapter and then I'm like, okay, what's next? What else can I do?
Yeah.
And it's like I can't just sit down and be okay. And so that's something I'm trying to focus on, is being okay, just being still for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. But it's very hard.
Sure.
So it's interesting how, again, it's going back to learning about yourselves. And I find that is somewhat fascinating, as I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I learning about myself today? What new feelings are coming up that I have to kind of either work through or just let kind of happen and be okay
Right.
with. And so it's like that's a whole new process, because usually you can be like, I'll deal with that later. I gotta work, I gotta go to class, I gotta do this. But you're like, okay, I've got time to work through this, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything else to do. I can't shove it off. I gotta acknowledge it and work through it and let it go, whatever the case may be. So,
But I feel
cool.
like you can also acknowledge that you're just have a higher level of energy. Throw your book on Audible, put it in your ear, and take a walk.
Yeah. That's
Maybe
why podcasts
that's
are great for
your
me.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Podcasts, I'm sitting here, like, I've been listening to Brene Brown, and
Oh, love
she
her.
launched her podcast in
Yep.
March, right as all of this, and she talks about this FFTs. And so if you haven't listened to that podcast and you're feeling kind of this, what do I do in this time? So FFTs stand for, and sorry, this is going to be a swear word, but fucking first time. And she's like, we are in an FFT. Like, this is real. Like, you and I coming on here and doing what we're doing, that's an FFT. It's like,
Yep.
nobody knows. There are no rules. We're working through this. There's a lot of anxiety, but it's the first time. There's
Right.
no rule book to it. And it was just bad. So I'm sitting here, I've got the podcast in, and I'm walking the dog, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is exactly what I'm feeling. So really interesting. And I think that there's a lot, like the books on Audible or Libby, or podcasts are really helpful when you need to kind of do that. Like for somebody like myself who needs to get out, I can plug it in and walk and listen, and I still feel like I'm getting that mental stimulation. I feel like a dog. It's like, you can't just walk me. I need to have some I need to throw a ball, go play fetch or something. So I get where Chauncey's coming from now. I have much more of a, yes, we were talking about you.
Oh my God, he's so funny.
I know. He did this all through my yoga class this morning. It really added a level of challenge to teaching. Well, let's wrap up. I guess, what are a couple things that you're doing this week to kind of stay, either active, sane, all of the above? And maybe they're the same as last week, but
So I think some of them are the same as last week. I swear by, comforting shows on Netflix or TV, because stupid Netflix took off Friends. So I mean, for me, Friends, New Girl, and Gilmore Girls are my comfort shows. I've seen them all so many times that
yeah,
it's just like soothing. It's like background music if I want it to be, or I can really watch.
yeah,
It's I love it. I think that another goal of mine for this week is to drive to. I think I want to hit World's End in
nice.
Hingham. So it's ocean and forest and trees and grass and all of that. So it's a good vibe, and typically not too crowded, but also typically there's some dogs. So that'll help me out. I think just doing the social media concerts are really, really cool. I actually watched I don't know if you're a Lady Antebellum fan. But they basically got their whole band together virtually. So there was like, I don't know if it was Zoom or whatever, but you could see them all, and they did a song together that way.
That's cool.
Super cool. So those are really cool for me. Just music in general, animals, yoga. So those are kind of my things.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think that similar, watching, I'm going to make a plug. I'm going to plead for Netflix. I saw a meme that ever since Netflix took off Friends, things just haven't been the same in the world. And I'm like, bring them back. This is a sign. We need Friends on Netflix. So that's my plea for anybody that works or knows somebody that works at Netflix. How do we make this happen? Those daily walks are really helpful, whether it's putting in a podcast and walking or having Sean and I take the dogs out for the walks, something like that, yoga. I do still find that keeping a schedule, I am going to look at, to your point, not necessarily having to teach every day, so that I can find time for myself to do whatever it is, whether it's reading or taking a class of somebody else's. But I find keeping that type of routine, um, and I think a lot of it too is just trying to stay off of social media when I don't need to be on there, like looking at,
Yep.
the time that I would go on social media, picking up the book instead, or putting on that rom-com. I'm a big rom-com person, and those are just feel-good movies. And I think no better time than now to have that on, like you said, the background noise.
Yep.
And continuing just to stay in touch with my family. Like I talk to my mom on a regular basis, but I think my sisters, I found that I actually have interacted with them more the past couple of weeks in checking in, what they're doing, how they're doing. And it's been really fun. And that always makes me feel, a little bit better, gives me that boost that I needed, if
Yep.
I'm feeling a little low. So those would be some of my kind of key things. A lot of the same, but just trying to add it in here and there. And like I said, just watching what I want when it comes to information around this, but not getting too ingrained in watching it minute by minute, day by day. So
Right. Right.
cool. Well,
Well,
thanks for joining. We'll probably do this again next Sunday. I like it. I think
sounds good.
we both have fun. For anybody who's listening to this now or in the future, if you have any questions, definitely let us know. Again, this is therapeutic for us, I think.
Yep.
And hopefully it helps make others of you out there listening to this or sharing this with friends feel kind of similar and validating your feelings. I know this is an unprecedented time. So let us know if there's something you want us to touch on in the coming weeks. We're definitely here and happy to answer any questions or talk through our opinions of things. And we'll see you all next week. Have a great rest of your Sunday. I'm sure I'll be seeing you later on House Party. So play some games
Sounds
there.
good.
All right. I'll talk to you later,
Bye,
girl.
girl.